Hello, the internet. Is your friendly internet pastor, Scott Dalen. I am a pastor in a small community, in a small congregation in the southwest corner of Iowa. But what I want you to know here in the internet, my branch, section, chunk, denomination, whatever you want to call it, my part of the larger Christian church doesn't really matter. All I want you to know, I'm your friendly internet pastor and I am here for you. But why am I here for you? Perhaps you are wondering. If you have never caught one of these videos before, let me break it down for you. I do these for three reasons. First, to put a little bit of encouragement into the world, to hopefully brighten your day just a little bit as you see this, and to help you know that, hey, you're a bright spot in the world. So that little bit of encouragement, because this world could always use some encouragement. Number two is I like to do some teaching on something that I call liturgical. Now, this is a fancy church word that talks about various themes and seasons and specific days and such for the church year, why we kind of focus in on things that we do. So that was reason number two. And then reason number three, the final reason that I do these is to offer a message or a talk or a homily or a sermon is the churchy word. I put that out wow, I got a little tongue-tied there. To put that message out there for you based on the assigned gospel or scripture text for the week. And if you're wondering, it's also the same one that I will preach to my congregation when Sunday rolls around. So we kind of kill two birds with one stone that way. So that is why I do these. If you are interested in that and would like to see them when they come out, usually on Fridays is when I put them out. Hit subscribe here on YouTube and you'll see them when they come out. Also, I often try to put some bits of encouragement into the various social medias as well. You can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, sometimes Twitter's kind of getting weird. Also on TikTok, where I do short little videos, sometimes humorous, sometimes teaching, all that kind of stuff. So those are out there too. If you're interested in finding those, hey, you're welcome. They're there. If not, no biggie, no problem. But I'll put that information down below the video. So anyway, all that intro out of the way, that's why I do these. Hope that you are doing well. Hope that you are having a good week. I don't know about you, but hey, it's Friday. Friday always makes me feel better. The sun is out. I can kind of see it through the windows as I look that way. That always makes things happy and joyful and cool. Hopefully you're in the same boat as you find this. Hopefully things are going well for you and you feel like the deck is maybe stacked in your favor. However, I know that's not always the case. And sometimes there are those times, there are those periods of life, there are those days, there are those years, there are whatever time frame you want to use. There are those times when it feels like the deck is stacked against us and things are not going okay. And we feel like no matter how hard we're trying, things just never come together. So I want you to know that if that is your mode, if that is your sensibility right now, I want you to keep going. I hope that you keep going, and I want you to know that there's someone out there who hopes good things for you, and I do. I'm not just blowing smoke. I actually hope good things for people, and I always imagine and hope the best for people. So keep on going, and know this. You are a bright spot in the world for somebody, even if you don't know it, even if it doesn't feel like it. So keep on going. All right, let's switch gears. Let's get liturgical. There's that big fancy word. Now, you may be noticing something a little off if you happen to be a regular viewer, or if you've seen these before, in that the coloration that I am wearing right now is not matching up with the coloration behind me. So I mentioned it's nice and bright outside. If we were actually to take the camera and look out the window right now, you would see a lot of bright white snow that the sun is just shining on and making it very, very, very bright outside. And that's because yesterday, here in my little corner of the world, we pretty much had a blizzard. It wasn't quite blizzard, but we got a lot of snow, a lot of snow. We went from no snow to all the snow, like all the snow. So it was very bright outside. Now this is important because normally on Thursdays, which was yesterday, that's the day when some of the ladies come in and they change the various drapes, the things that you see behind me, the coloration, they kind of do some work. We call them the altar guild. They're very important. They do a lot of the stuff behind the scenes and appreciate them greatly. But yesterday would have been the day when they would have come in and changed these from green that you see behind me now over to white for this specific Sunday that is coming up this weekend. Now, again, I'm wearing the white shirt, and that's because this weekend is one of those that we call a high holy day. Now, I'm going to go out, I'm going to be honest here, I don't really know what that means. I sort of understand that they are special days, they're kind of by themselves, they're sort of like one thing, and this is one of them, but I really don't know where the name itself comes from. But when those days come up, the color of the day, the liturgical color of the day is white. So at some point yet today, I don't know when, but at some point today, these green banners behind me are going to get changed and they are going to become white. And this time around, that is extraordinarily fitting for us to picture in our minds and consider because of which holy day this one is. Now, this Sunday is known as Transfiguration Sunday. And in this Sunday, which is always the final Sunday before the season of Lent kicks off, which more on that here in a second, it's always Transfiguration Sunday, and we always focus in on the story of Jesus' transfiguration. Now, that's a big fancy word. It stems from the idea of change, or to be metamorphosed. Metamorphosed? I feel like that's not proper English. But the Greek word is metamorphosis. I'm saying it wrong. But it's basically like, think of metamorphosis, like a caterpillar undergoes to become a butterfly. It's this change in appearance, this change in form. That's kind of the whole idea that lies behind Transfiguration. So, all of that being said, again, picture the green will change to white in advance for Sunday, but we just have to imagine it in our minds here on the video. Okay, you know what? I need to swing back around. I just remembered something that I forgot. I mentioned a moment ago that we're going to talk about Lent. So Lent is coming up. I've kind of mentioned that in past videos if you've seen. Lent is the season in which we change over to preparation for the death of Jesus during Holy Week. And so the season of Lent, which is 50 days, it always tracks forward from Easter. And since Easter moves every year, that means that the beginning of Lent moves every year, but the length of Lent is always the same. Now, when Lent kicks off, it actually kicks off with Ash Wednesday. That is this coming Wednesday, so just not quite a week from now as I'm recording this. So the next video that you will probably see, if I get one done early next week, will be in preparation for Ash Wednesday. If not, it'll be next week as we're already into the season of Lent. But all of that is to say that depending on when Lent starts, that determines when this last Sunday of the season of Epiphany, which is what we're in now, which is why things are green. The color of the season of Epiphany is green as we talk about ways that Jesus is revealed to the world. And here in the last Sunday of Epiphany, Transfiguration Sunday, we find the divinity of Jesus shining through the human. And so we see that being revealed to the world, or in the very least, revealed to a small group of people. I have given you a whole lot of background, which is fine, I don't mind, but how about we take all of this, and I don't know why I'm moving around so much. I'm getting a little strange up here today, because I'm excited about it. Hey, it's all good. We're having a good day. Hope you are too. There's that encouragement again. Anyway, let's bring it down now. Let's harness. Let's calm down, and let's get into it. Our gospel lesson for this week, Transfiguration Sunday, comes from Matthew chapter 17, verses 1 through 9. 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and his brother John and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. Then Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will make 3 dwellings here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While he was still speaking, suddenly a bright cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud a voice said, "This is my son, the beloved. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell to the ground and were overcome by fear. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Get up and do not be afraid." When they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus himself alone. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus ordered them, "Tell no one about the vision until after the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." The gospel of the Lord. May the grace and peace of our triune God be yours today and forever. Amen. I'm thinking about TV and the format that we get TV these days. Now, in my household, we have been streaming TV for several years now, probably 5-6 years, that we've just streamed it through the internet from one provider or another. Now, there's also satellite TV out there, or satellite cable, if you want to call it that. That is still an option. I don't know how many people still use it, but I know it's still out there. And when I think back, actually, cable through the satellite, or TV through a satellite, was the first opportunity that my family had back on the farm to actually get expanded TV. Now, I mentioned also cable. I've been through cable over the years, and you get it through the wire, and it comes through the system that way. But also, as I look clear back in my own history of how to watch TV, I remember back in the day, on the farm especially, although I think basically everybody has experienced this at one time or another, that TV was broadcast analog through a channel or through a signal that was beamed through the air, and everybody in their house had that antenna on top of the roof that they would have to turn various directions in order to get the signal. Now, the earliest I remember was we had 4 channels that would come through the antenna that was on top of the roof of my parents' house. And where they were at, if we wanted to get some of the, basically it was the networks. If we wanted to get ABC or CBS, ABC or NBC, we had to turn that antenna to the southwest where we would pick up the Sioux City channels. If we wanted to watch CBS, we had to swing it the opposite direction. It had to go around to the northeast, and we could pick up the CBS station out of Mankato, Minnesota. We could get either one of those. Now, there was also Iowa Public Television, and it seemed like we could pick that up regardless of what direction the antenna was focusing. But that was basically it. We basically had those 4 channels, and that was the option. However, there were moments, they were rare, but they did happen every once in a while. And I can remember these very vividly when I was pretty young. When the stars would align, when the signals would be perfect and the conditions would be absolutely perfect, which is to say bright and clear with absolutely no wind whatsoever, we could get Fox. Now, as a little kid, I loved this because Fox at that time would put cartoons on, and that means that I could watch cartoons besides just on Saturday mornings. So this was a big deal. So it would be one of those situations. Every once in a while, I'd be flipping through the channels, and I would look outside, and I'd be like, oh, it's bright and clear, and there's no wind. I'm going to try. And it was channel 17. I just kind of remember that. I would check channel 17, and it'd be like, yes, I've got Fox. I can watch cartoons. Oh, snap. Yes, it was just this amazing, glorious moment when I would be full of jubilee, and because it was so unexpected. Now, I'm thinking actually about the reaction. That idea of, oh, wow, or whoa, or oh, snap. That's kind of some weird slang that I picked up somewhere. But you know what? Sometimes that's important. Tuck that idea in the back of your head and really think more about this idea of the signals aligning or the signal coming through so unexpectedly. And let's get into this story. The Transfiguration, this incredible moment in which Jesus invites these 3 disciples. I always call them the big 3, Peter, James, and John. It seems like they get to be partial to a lot of different amazing moments in Jesus' ministry or amazing moments in this time. And I don't know why it's just those 3, but they do. But regardless, Jesus takes Peter, James, and John, and they go up this high mountain by themselves. Now, it stands to reason Jesus probably knew what was going to happen. I don't know that he knew, but I figure he probably did. But as they're going, they go up this high mountain, and as they get to the top of the mountain, this incredible moment happens. The Transfiguration, where Jesus is somehow changed before them. As they're watching, they see his appearance change. Now, we don't know a ton of what exactly this would have looked like. The descriptions for it, I think, are kind of lacking, but we hear that somehow his face has changed, and it blazes like the sun. So he becomes incredibly bright, apparently, and we hear that his clothes become dazzling white. One of the other gospel accounts of this talks about how it's white like no launderer could make them. Matthew doesn't say that, but it's in one of the other ones. So somehow the appearance of Jesus is utterly changed in the sight of these 3 guys. And the only thing that I can make of it, the only thing that I can try and wrap my head around this oddball, strange moment is that somehow the divinity of Jesus, the divine nature of Jesus, who is both God and human, somehow broke through the human in this instant, and Peter and James and John were able to see it. Now, as this moment happens, we also hear there's a couple other people that show up. And it's Moses and it's Elijah, 2 very important figures from Jewish history. Moses, who way back when had received the law from God and given it to the people, and then Elijah, who is one of the most important, the most prolific prophets from that period in the history of the Jewish people. So these two important figures also show up, and the three guys see it too. Now, we hear from Peter. They're experiencing this incredible moment, and I don't know if they're picking their jaw up off the floor, stands to reason that they probably were, or if they're just confused, or if they're excited. We don't exactly know how they're feeling in this moment, but Peter, in typical Peter fashion, he speaks up. Lord, it is good that we are here. I will make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. We should stay here. Now, as they're speaking, as he is saying this, all of a sudden, this bright cloud envelops them. And the voice of God booms out of the cloud, and it is terrifying. And we hear that the 3 disciples hit the ground. They fall on their faces because they're so freaked out. But seemingly as quick as it happens, as soon as it starts, it's also over. And Jesus comes over them and touches them and tells them, do not be afraid. Be raised up. You must get up. Be raised up off the ground. And as they look around, everyone else is gone. It's just Jesus. It seems that the cloud is gone. Moses and Elijah seem to have disappeared. We don't know if Jesus is still looking different or if he just looks normal and human again. We don't have that detail. But this amazing moment happens, and it's there, and then it's over. That's the story. And as they're going back down the mountain, Jesus tells them, don't tell anyone else of this vision until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. That is the story of the Transfiguration. The language is important. We have this story. It's also featured in Mark's Gospel, and it's featured in Luke's Gospel. It's important enough that 3 of the 4 Gospels all report it. So this incredible moment was there. And even if Peter and James and John don't say anything to anybody else initially, and they follow the command of Jesus not to reveal the vision, at some point they do, because 3 of the 4 Gospels have it. So clearly they told somebody. But I'm really, really fascinated by the fact that in Matthew's Gospel alone, just this account, Jesus calls it a vision. Tell no one else of the vision until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. Now, we hear about visions a lot throughout the course of the Scriptures. Lots of people have visions, and visions seem to be these incredible moments when somehow God gets the attention of the individual and reveals something important to them. Oftentimes life-shattering or life-altering in terms of the revelation that they are receiving through this vision. Peter himself will have visions later on in the book of Acts, so he definitely is prone to them. But it raises the question, why would Jesus call this a vision? Does that mean that they just sort of saw this happen, but it didn't actually happen? It was kind of like a dream or almost like they were overcome by some divine moment? Maybe, maybe not. And maybe that doesn't really matter. But the nature of visions in what we see tells me something that's interesting to recognize, and perhaps why Jesus says, don't tell anyone else for a while. Because this was for them. That catches my attention. It seemed to be for them in this moment. I've often asked the question, why do these big 3 disciples, why are they the ones who always seem to get to have these big moments? Oftentimes, through Jesus' ministry and the times that the disciples were following, it's these 3 that get to experience something extra, something more. They're privy to come in and witness a couple of different miracles that the other disciples don't get to see. Later on in the Garden of Gethsemane, when Jesus is about to be betrayed, he takes these 3 deeper into the garden to pray with him. It's these 3 that seem to get the extra attention, and I oftentimes wonder, why is that? I did a little bit of digging as I wrestled with that question. Why these 3? And I wondered, is God trying to get their attention? Is God really trying to almost smack them upside the head to get them to realize something? And as I worked with the original language in the translation, something I do every week, I began to see a little bit of where that might be coming in. Now, it is not present in this English translation that we used. But there are 3 occurrences of a Greek word. I really, really like this word whenever I see it pop up. Now, the word is idou, and it basically is like this moment of exclamation that's trying to get your attention. Now, oftentimes we'll translate it as behold. But you can't just say behold. You have to put a little gusto to it, right? Behold. But it almost might be like, wake up, or whoa, or oh snap, like I was thinking before with the signal showing up from Fox so I could watch the cartoons. Oh snap, it's there. It's this surprising, almost amazing, just wake up and see it. Oh snap, did you just see that? Again, 3 times it happens. First we hear, oh snap, Moses and Elijah were standing there talking. And then Peter makes his proclamation or says this thing to Jesus, and oh snap, a bright cloud enveloped them. And oh snap, the voice from the cloud said, this is my son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. Oh snap. Maybe, just maybe, God is trying really hard to get the attention of these 3 guys. Maybe Jesus, who is also God, intentionally took them up the mountain knowing that this was going to happen because they needed to get this signal, to get this extra bit. And I thought about, why would that be? Well, maybe Peter's a bit of a no-brainer. I always think that Peter is our human entry point, the one that we can relate to in these amazing moments, because he is so human. Peter is impulsive. He's always quick to speak. He seems to be really slow to think. And he has these moments all of the time. Interestingly enough, I think if we paid attention to the narration of this passage, we actually get led back to one of those moments. This passage starts 6 days later, and I was like, well, 6 days after what? And if we look back, we see 6 days earlier, Jesus was having this moment, and he asked the disciples, who do you say that I am? And Peter, in a divinely inspired moment, says, you are the Messiah. And Jesus is like, yes, I am. Now let me tell you what that means. And he makes the first of 3 passion predictions. The time when he says, I am the Messiah, and here's what that means. I am going to be betrayed, I'm going to be tortured, I'm going to be killed, but I am going to rise again. And Peter, who has just said, you are the Messiah, swings around and says, no, Lord, this must never happen. And he rebukes Jesus, and then in turn, Jesus turns around and rebukes him. That has just happened 6 days earlier. And now this moment. But what about James and John? Why do they need this extra little work? Well, you know, they had their moments too. I mentioned that Jesus makes his passion prediction 3 times. The third one, which will happen a couple of chapters after this, James and John decide that they're like, well, if Jesus is going to be killed but then rise again, and he's going to take this position of authority in heaven, maybe we should see if we can capitalize on that. Lord, allow us to sit at your right and your left hand when you come into your kingdom. They're trying to jockey for position. Clearly, they don't get it either. So we've got Peter and we've got James and John, all of which respond very moronically, if we want to say that, to the news of who Jesus is and what it is that God is up to through the life and the death and the resurrection of Jesus. So maybe they did need that extra work. Maybe they did need that extra attention. Maybe they needed that signal from God when the stars align just perfectly, like when Fox would show up for me, so that they can be like, oh snap, something's going on here. I think we all have those times at one time or another, don't we? Those moments when something happens that reveals the presence of God. Now, sometimes it might feel really positive, and sometimes it might feel really, really detrimental. And rest assured, whenever it happens, it's probably scary. That's something that we see throughout the scriptures. When the divine shows up, human nature gets freaked out. The disciples fell on their face when they realized they were in the presence of God. We hear many other times when people will encounter an angel or they'll encounter the presence of God and they are terrified because it seems like the divine is just more than we can handle. But what I find to be good news in this is the assurance that Jesus gives us. That Jesus says, do not be afraid. Do not be terrified. And throughout this amazing encounter, this amazing moment, this terrifying moment that really gets the attention of these 3 guys, Jesus is with them the whole time. He's there when it starts, and he's there when it's over. And the assurance of God says, listen to him. He is the beloved one, and he is with you. And that is a reminder for us that the divine is with us too, always in the good times and the bad times, and the times when maybe we're aware of it, and the times that it also doesn't feel like it. I believe the truth of the gospel reminds us that we have a God who is willing to make the stars align in order to get our attention. And I think that the life and the death and the resurrection of Jesus was that incredible display. God showing us that there is no length God will not go to in order to be with us. That's what Jesus was ultimately up to. That's what the disciples got to bear witness to. And that's why this moment was a vision for them until after the Son of Man was raised from the dead. And then it seems that they told everybody about it because it shows up here and it shows up in 2 other Gospels. It is a story that we have received. Jesus is the beloved Son of God, and we are called to listen to him. And what we hear from him is his claim upon each one of us, that you are mine. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Take care, everybody. We'll catch you next time.